Australia was an incredible season opener with many great moments that we are still talking about to this day. That weekend was absolute chaos, filled with wet weather racing, insane results and lots of rookies crashing. So yeah, I don't think this weekend Chinese Grand Prix was ever really going to live up to that, but that doesn't mean it's going to flop. Plus, this was the first sprint weekend of the year, the first of 6 this year. So, double the sessions, does that mean double the drama and fun, or double the amount of boredom we receive? The Shanghai circuit always sparks debate within the community of F1 fans. It has a banging straight, twisty technical corners that they have to overcome, and some of the most insane fans around the world. Also, it prints a lot of money, so this track isn't going anywhere. Also in this video, as well as the recap, we're going to be talking about the biggest winners, losers and the WTF moments that happened during the Chinese Grand Prix. So let's get on to the recap of the race, the sprint qualifying session. Not much out of the ordinary, McLaren on top with the fastest car indeed, Ferrari weren't far behind for once, the Racing Bulls had extreme pace out of nowhere, and Liam Lawson was 20th place. Man is allergic to getting into Q2 right now, we'll move on to him a little bit later on if you wait to see. Shout out to some of the rookies though, Bortoleto once again out-qualified Hulkenberg, and also Behrman actually realised he has actually got some pace in that car, so good on the rookies. But SQ3 was actually really tight. It was between the Ferraris, the McLarens, Max Verstappen, not Red Bull. But who came out on top? It was Lewis Hamilton who came out with his first pole position for Ferrari team. What a moment for him. Then the sprint race, and not going to lie to you, not a lot to report here. Lando had an absolute stinker of a sprint race and horrendous lap one like he always does. He made a mistake which made him lose 3 positions and went down all the way to P9 in that McLaren car and was held up by Lance Stroll for most of the race. We'll move on to Lando Norris a little bit more later on in the video if you stay tuned to watch. Piastri eventually overtook Max Verstappen for P2 when Max Verstappen's tyres decided to degrade extremely fast. Liam Lawson made a few moves from the back of the grid to eventually make P14, but he ended up hitting every single car like it was bumper carts on his way through. But it was all fine in the end as Lewis Hamilton picked up the sprint race win and his first win for the Ferrari team. Not only that, he dominated the sprint race, finishing 7 seconds ahead of P2 Oscar Piastri. Talk about aura, man. Also, before we move on to the qualifying session, make sure to comment down below what was your crazy thoughts about the race. What did you think about some of the racers like Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, and also make sure to subscribe to see more F1 content like this. Main qualifying time, and again, not a lot to report here. Doohan decided to go spinning once again and secured his exit from the Alpine team by sort of May. Okay, maybe a little too harsh there. Liam Lawson has decided to cook again, but not in a good way. Man decided to qualify P20 on the grid out of 20 drivers. This guy has qualified 18th, 20th and 20th in the 4th fastest car. Like, this surely can't go on. Even people like Checo, Albon, Gasly were getting better positions in qualifying than Liam Lawson. He currently has a worse qualifying ratio than Mazepin, one of the worst F1 drivers of all time. But again, we'll move on to Liam Lawson a bit further on in the video. Carlos Sainz once again looked very off. He qualified 15th and is getting cooked by Alex Albon again. It's really unlike Carlos Sainz, but he just looks strangely off right now and it's very far off the pace overall of Albon. But let's hope he picks up soon. I also need to talk about the Racing Bulls. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 9th and Isaac Hadjar qualified 7th. Once again, meaning he was the best out of the rookies in a qualifying session. They somehow got pace from basically nowhere and really showcased that across at least one lap, they're extremely fast. Might even be better than the Red Bull car itself. But finally, it was Oscar Piastri at last securing his first pole position in F1 with the McLaren team. Followed by George Russell in 2nd, his teammate Lando Norris in 3rd and Max Verstappen in 4th, securing the 2 front rows for the race. It's lights out and away we go, and the first lap was extremely messy. Russell launched well, Piastri defended well, which allowed Lando to swoop in and take P2 from George Russell. Max also launched, getting ahead and tangled with the Ferraris. Talk about tangling with the Ferraris. Lewis Hamilton and Leclerc decided to come together, which caused Leclerc to have damage, which, strangely enough, made his car actually perform better. But I've got to be honest with you, outside of that, not a lot happened during this race. Alonso, yeah, his brakes failed and he DNF'd once again. So he now has 2 DNFs in 2 races. A bit peak for him. The race turned into a bit of a tyre management snooze fest after that, in my personal opinion. Bortoletti decided to go for a spin. Oliver Bearman decided to actually cook Kimi Antonelli and cook the whole midfield for that matter of fact. Haas decided that they just didn't have the slowest car anymore, unlike Australia. Russell did also get past Lando at one point after the first pit stops, but it was only for about 3 laps until Lando eventually overtook him again. Unfortunately, not much happened during this race. There wasn't a lot to report until the last 10 laps or so, where Max Verstappen's tyres decided to say, we're not degrading anymore, and he overtook both Ferraris, which, in the end, wouldn't have mattered anyway, but we'll move on to that when we hit the WTF moments. And also, Lando's brakes decided to go, nah, we're not working anymore, which almost cost him the P2 position. But the biggest takeaway, Oscar Piastri has won the Chinese Grand Prix, which is his first Grand Prix win of the season. Championship contender right here. Now we're going to move on to the biggest winners, losers and WTF moments of the Chinese Grand Prix. I'm going to start off with the losers, and the biggest loser of them all is once again Liam Lawson. Man, what can you even say about Liam Lawson that already hasn't been said? He has qualified 18th, 20th and 20th in the first 3 qualifying sessions of the year. Hell, there was even 3 disqualifications and he still only ended up 13th place. It's been a shocking start for Liam Lawson, yet to secure even a single point in F1. The craziest fact that I found out recently is that Max Verstappen, for the last 70 points that Red Bull have got, has scored all 70 points. What? This is Max Verstappen's team, and none of his teammates seem to get close to him. But what do you think about this situation? Does Liam Lawson deserve longer? I'm hearing reports that he might even be replaced by Yuki Tsunoda as early as the Japanese Grand Prix, which is actually the next Grand Prix. It's been a shocking start for him. I don't care if the Red Bull is a car that is struggling to work, not very stable. It's still the 4th fastest car at least, and he should be doing way, way better than what he's doing. 18th, 20th and 20th in qualifying is not acceptable. Even a 12th or a 13th, yeah, it's not great, but it's something you can work on. You know, Gasly, Albon, Sainz, Perez at least started seasons well, qualified in decent positions half the time. Checo Perez last year in the first 5 races got a podium in pretty much every race, so what's stopping Liam Lawson from getting there? And the next biggest loser has to be Ferrari. Now, when it came to the actual sprint, they did really well. Lewis Hamilton got the win, Charles Leclerc finished 4th. And it actually looked like they had some proper pace going into the weekend. But then actual qualifying came and that pace seemingly just disappeared. They qualified 5th and 6th, which isn't awful and something you can definitely work on going into the race. But then the race came and instantly disaster struck. They both collided and lost positions to Max. They eventually gained the positions back, but then during the race, Max overtook them again, meaning they finished 5th and 6th again. But that's not really the reason why they're part of the biggest failures or the biggest losers of this Grand Prix. Because that wouldn't really warrant them being the biggest losers. The biggest losers is that they actually walked out of the Grand Prix with 0 points. The reason why? Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. Wow. We're going to go into that in the WTF moment soon, so make sure to stay for that for a bit more information. But yeah, that's the real reason why Ferrari were the biggest losers. My last biggest loser is going to be Alpine. Unfortunately as well, Gasly was also the 3rd driver who got disqualified, which means Alpine are the only team so far yet to score a single constructor point this year. I actually expected them after the Bahrain test to be, 5th, 6th sort of position, but they look awful. Doohan had an absolutely horrendous weekend, picking up penalty after penalty, spinning Bortoletti out, coming near the back of the grid. He had a terrible, terrible weekend. Gasly actually had a decent weekend, but missed out on points in the sprint and eventually got disqualified during the race. This was due to his car being underweight. So I've got to put out Alpine as the biggest losers. They've had a horrendous start to the season, and it was a horrendous weekend overall for Pierre Gasly and especially Jack Doohan. Now we're going to move on to the biggest winners, and obviously the biggest winner of them all is Oscar Piastri. He came back fighting, especially after last week, where he realistically should have got the win or at least a podium place. During sprint qualifying, he picked up 3rd, which wasn't amazing considering the car they got, but he worked on it and eventually finished P2 during the actual sprint, picking up 7 points for himself and the McLaren team, which is a lot better than Lando did in the sprint race. And then come to the actual two main spots that you need to do well, and well, Oscar Piastri smashed it out the park. He got his first ever pole position and also got his first win of this season, his third overall win in F1. And he absolutely dominated this Grand Prix. He was leading of 53 out of the 56 laps and never looked like really losing it. The only part he really looked like losing it was when Lando was in a little bit of DRS zone, but apart from that, superb drive from Oscar Piastri. Deserves the biggest winner of this weekend. My next biggest winner is going to go to the Haas team. Haas, out of nowhere, found so much pace this weekend. In the race, they finished P5 and P8 after the disqualifications happened, which is amazing results. Ocon has now managed to gather 10 points so far this season, which is just due to this race, and Behrman also picked up 4 points for himself, so they are currently 7th and 12th respectively in the drivers' standings. They are also only 3 points off Ferrari overall this season, which is insane to think about. I've got to give the biggest shout out to Behrman. My man qualified 16th, which was not great, considering his teammate Ocon decided to qualify 11th with that car. But Behrman smashed the race. He started 16th and eventually finished 8th. 10th during the race, obviously before the disqualifications, but 8th overall. He was cooking people like Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli, who have obviously faster cars than him, but it was a superb drive, beating everyone in midfield and eventually getting his first points of the season. Much better from the Haas team, deserved the second biggest win award. And my third biggest winner is going to go to George Russell. This guy generally could be in championship contender this season if he keeps up this form. He qualified P5 during the sprint race and then finished the sprint race P4, which picked up 4 points for himself and the Mercedes team. But during the race is where it all matters, and oh my goodness, George Russell was exceptional once again. That W16 car generally looks stable and definitely something that Mercedes can build upon for Kimi Antonelli and George Russell going into this season further. George Russell qualified second, which is an exceptional result in that car. He absolutely delivered the maximum, beating even someone like Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Especially Lando Norris, because McLaren have the fastest car and he still out-qualified them. He was only less than 0.1 seconds behind Oscar Piastri, which is phenomenal. Not only that, he drove a superb race. The McLaren were the fastest team, but he only finished 2 seconds behind Lando Norris in the end, who obviously had a brake failure, but he picked up the absolute maximum points he can. He's getting more mature, better and better every single race weekend, and I genuinely believe he can lead that Mercedes team now. So my third biggest win award goes to George Russell. Now a quick little segment will be the middle. The middle is where they're not the biggest losers or the biggest winners. They're just kind of there. Starting off with Lando Norris. The reason why he's here is, yes, he had a good race, qualified third and finished second. So that was actually an alright result for him. Yes, he lost to his teammate overall who qualified first and finished first, but it was still a solid race from Lando Norris. But the reason why he's in the middle is because of his absolutely abysmal sprint weekend. He qualified 6th after a big massive lockup at the last corner, which cost him so much time, so he qualified 6th. And not only that, he finished the sprint race in P8, only getting 1 point from the McLaren team. One massive error cost him so many positions that he lost 3 positions on the opening lap. Once again, proving to people that sometimes this guy is just not getting it. But he saves himself for the race, so that's why he's part of the middle section. Next up is actually Lance Stroll. Now, he did okay in qualifying. He pretty much was around where Alonso was, which is a good sign. And once again, he picked up 2 points for the Aston Martin team. So far, he's got 10 points this season, which puts him above Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. And his teammate Fernando Alonso currently has 2 DNFs. The reason why I'm putting him in the middle is because that first stint for him was generally super impressive. And during the sprint, he was doing absolutely brilliantly to keep Lando Norris behind for most of the sprint race. So Lance Stroll has actually been kind of cooking this season so far. Let's see if that form continues. Lastly, I've got to put Lewis Hamilton. I feel so sorry for Hamilton. He got the sprint pole. He got the sprint win, which is his first pole and win for the Ferrari team. And they generally looked like they had good pace. But unfortunately, eventually, it all came tumbling down when him and Charles Leclerc got disqualified from the race, meaning they both got 0 points and are currently tying on points with the Williams team in the constructors' standings, who both have 17. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton, also part of the middle. So let's talk about a few of the WTF moments that happened during the race. Yuki Tsunoda's front wing decided to just absolutely burst and rip apart on the main straight by hitting nothing. Not really sure what happened here, but we've got to check the replays on that. But it seemingly just exploded out of nowhere. The next WTF moment has to be Ferrari drivers both getting disqualified due to Leclerc's car being underweight by 1 kilogram and Hamilton's rear skid block being not the minimum thickness that it should be. The minimum thickness should be 9mm and his was about 8.6. So Ferrari scored a whopping 0 points during the race. We've got to talk about Lawson. I mean, apparently Yuki Tsunoda is already in contention to replace Liam Lawson as early as the Japanese Grand Prix. Wow, big difference indeed. And the last WTF moment is that Williams is currently P4 in the constructors' standings. They already have equal amount of points than they did the whole of last season. Congrats James Vowell and the Williams team, carry on this form. So that's it. That is the Chinese Grand Prix recap, the biggest winners, losers and WTF moments. But make sure to comment down below what were your biggest winners of the weekend, losers of the weekend and your WTF moments that you got out of the Chinese Grand Prix. But thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao ciao.